Hi, before I get started with design patterns, I would like to discuss SOLID design principles. SOLID is an acronym for 5 principles shown here. These principles are helpful while designing classes and their relationships. I will give a quick overview of each principle and explain it with basic examples. This is the first principle, the single responsibility principle. It states a class should have only one reason to change. This means the class should have only one responsibility. When a class fulfills a responsibility, then it provides some implementation, and that implementation can change in future. And that in turn should mean that there should be only one reason for that implementation to change. Classes that have multiple responsibilities are difficult to modify and may break when changed. That is why, to avoid these issues, you should put each responsibility in a separate class. In this example, there's a class called notes. It stores notes which can be simple text. I have just shown the skeleton of the class here. Now there is one problem here. This class should only manage notes. It should not be responsible for displaying them, because a note can be displayed in any form. So that's why this implementation violates the single responsibility principle. Ideally, classes that manage data should not have the responsibility of displaying them to the user. So what to do here? We should separate out the responsibility of display and put it in its own class. After we apply single responsibility principle, we put the responsibility of displaying the notes in the view class. It accepts the notes pointer and can display the notes. Notes itself does not know how its data is displayed. So this way, we can display notes in any way we want. The next principle is open-closed principle. It states modules should be open for extension but closed for modification. Here, modules may refer to functions, classes, or even libraries. When you want to change what a specific function or a class does, then you should be able to do that by adding new code and not by modifying existing code. Because if you modify existing code, then that can lead to bugs and cause the software to break. Therefore, we should write code in such a way that we should be able to change its behavior in future. And we should be able to do that by adding new code, not by modifying existing code. This principle is the cornerstone of good design. Because in good design, we should be able to add new features without modifying existing code. One way to implement this principle is by using design patterns. Assume in this example of notes, we want to modify this add method because we want to add a functionality where if a note starts with an exclamation mark, then it should go to the top of the list. So that way the user can easily spot such notes. In a naive implementation, we might modify the add function and add the condition here. This condition might check if a note that is added contains the exclamation mark, and then we take a decision accordingly. Now with this implementation, we have violated the open-closed principle because we have modified existing code. To follow open-closed principle, we should have implemented add function in such a way that in future, we should be able to change its implementation. And one way of doing this is making the add function virtual. And then, when we want to change its behavior, we simply add a new class and override the function. And in that override, we can decide what to do when a note is added. So with this implementation, we don't have to modify existing code.